An interesting article came out today from the Minnesota Star Tribune where they interviewed a bunch of booksellers about what's going on with the Neil Gaiman controversy. And sure enough, it's a situation where it's completely hypocritical on every single level. In some of the leftists go so far that it's pretty funny, but at least I guess they're consistent. But one bookseller actually went off on John Norman, who wrote the Gore books. They're like a sword and sorcery fantasy. They're pretty degenerate. I don't really recommend them, but they did do a lot for the genre. I mean, historically and the like, and the people did like them. They sold a lot because there was that degeneracy in it. But those books are about like enslaving women on other planets, and it was totally about his fetish stuff, which most of this stuff and these weird sci-fi stuff is. Neil Gaiman stuff's a lot about that as well. You kind of can read in between the lines some of his Sandman work. We've gotten into that in other videos, showing kind of his proclivities, which really showed that he was doing this situation that's a problem right now for a long, long time. But for some reason, Neil Gaiman doesn't get pulled from the shelves. Why is that? While John Norman's does. Well, it's about leftist hypocrisy every single time, and we're going to talk about this. And these are, again, both authors I don't like, but at the same time, it's rules for thee and not for me in this sort of situation. And this is what SJWs do in the entire publishing industry, and that's ruined the publishing industry for a long, long time. Let's get into the history of this in just a moment. Hit the like and subscribe button. Join us here, my friends, as we talk about all things science fiction and fantasy. This is the real fantasy news, as I like to say. My name is John Delarose. I am an author myself, and I would love for you to start checking out my work. This is blacklisted from the mainstream industry, blacklisted from the World Science Fiction Convention. People are scared that you're going to read this stuff and be like, wow, there's good fiction out there without the weird, creepy stuff that these guys put out there. And so I have a wonderful space opera trilogy. It is about a man who embeds himself on an alien starship to bring back information towards Earth that's crucial to a war effort that they're dealing with as humanity is in grave danger. So I would love for you to check this out. It's a 3-book trilogy. It builds up so nicely, and I pay it off huge at the end. The people who I love getting those emails when people get to the end of this trilogy. I'm actually writing a space exploration series in this world, so it's a great spot to start on my stuff. It's in the description below, and it's available on ebook, print, and audiobook for your convenience. All 3 books are on audio as well. Thank you guys so much for reading and for supporting us. I really appreciate you for being here. So Dreamhaven is a bookseller in Minnesota who was recently featured in the news because of the Neil Gaiman sexual assault controversy. While they admit that they've reduced their stock of the Sandman creator's works, they haven't removed him entirely, despite having done so to the author John Norman, who wrote Gore, on the basis of, quote, misogynistic statements. And yes, this is how crazy these people are at this point. It's a double standard that's all the way across the publishing industry. The publishing industry is all about who you are, not what you did. I've been dealing with this for a long, long time, and as have a lot of friends of mine. I've seen this happen all the way around. The first instance I really saw of this that really opened my eyes was when the Science Fiction Writers of America banned Vox Day, who is a fantasy writer who's wrote wonderful books. If you've not read his A Throne of Bones, beautiful epic fantasy, way better than anything George R.R. Martin or Brandon Sanderson have done, that's for sure. And he was, of course, and it still is, a conservative and he probably wouldn't like being labeled that, but let's call him right-wing. And so that pissed a lot of people off in science fiction and fantasy because it's a big leftist just circle jerk at this point. It's been that way for a long, long time. And they banned him because one of their like diversity hire black authors, who's like totally a race baiter, completely has no talent whatsoever. Her name's N.K. Jemisin, was fighting with him. And he fought back, and he called her a half savage on Twitter. And so, of course, they went, you can't call a black person a savage. But, of course, when they clipped all of the stuff, they left out the context that she was personally attacking him first, right? Which is totally fine for her to do. She's still a member of Syphilis. She wins Hugo Awards. She's golf clap for her. She's black. And then, of course, he's banned from everything. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is how these people act. It's rules for thee, not for me. Even though N.K. Jemisin was the one who initiated those personal attacks, she's the one who's the victim just because he clapped back. And this is really, really ridiculous. And it resulted in somebody getting blacklisted from the entire industry because of this, right? Just because of that. That's how little of a thing they'll blacklist from somebody for. And it goes, and you know it's why. Because he's right-wing, because he's Christian. That's what they want to get rid of, right? And so they did the same to me. They attacked me with Worldcon 2018 because they knew I was a Trump supporter. They banned me. They libeled me on their website. They called me a racist bully. And I sued them, and I won, and they had to apologize to me. But they wanted to fight in court. They went all the way through. Why? Just because they wanted to fight me because of who I am, not because of anything I did, right? Now, this guy, Neil Gaiman, if you have not followed everything that's gone on, really, really gross stuff. This is a predator, creepy. Everybody knows it. It's been a kept secret in the industry for years, and they've kept it intentionally because of who he is. Because he goes out there and he spouts off leftist ideologues sort of things. He says, "Me too, believe all women. I'm a feminist," right? And he's been saying this for years, so he can go around and then sexually assault young girls. Why? Because he says the right things, and he's part of the right tribe, right? And yes, I say that in the way that you know, if you know. And that's exactly how it goes. That's what this is all about all the way around. So no wonder Minnesota, a rabid leftist area, would not remove his books from things. And so they wrote an article on this called "What Do Bookstores Do When Authors Break Bad?" And naturally, this is crazy by the Minnesota Tribune by itself. They compare the Neil Gaiman sexual assaults and what he's done, with 11 women accusing him, to J.K. Rowling saying a woman is a woman. This is wild. And this goes to show that even the article writer on this level is an insane person who doesn't understand what morality is. Even if you don't like her politics on that front, just saying something and saying what her politics are is absolutely crazy to compare to an actual crime, right? He's charged with human trafficking, but she said a woman's a woman. So gosh, there's a moral dilemma in stalking her books. You see how these people act, and this is why people are fed up with it. If you don't know, leftists, if you watch this, if you're part of the science fiction establishment, this is why you lost. People understand, like normal people, that J.K. Rowling is just stating her opinion. It's free speech. She didn't do anything wrong. She hasn't harmed anybody. Neil Gaiman actively harmed people. There is a difference between the two, and you can't compare them. This is sick to compare them, as a matter of fact. You should, writer of this article, really reevaluate your life if you really have that as your attitudes. It's crazy. So they start interviewing a few different booksellers in this, which is interesting. And the first one they interviewed is very sane. They said, "We always try to stock everything and let the customers decide what we restock. That makes sense as a business. It's not really your place to judge things. If you're a comic shop owner, you don't go in there and, I talk smack with a couple comic shop owners about certain books. We do it quietly, though, because, he doesn't want to deter customers who want to buy certain books from the store, right? And if they like the Marvel slop that's terrible right now, it's not his. He's a comic book store vendor. His job is to sell it to them, not to deter them and to leave his stuff sitting on the shelves. So this is kind of a sane thing. So if you're not going to make a moral judgment, that's one thing. Now, the publishing industry's already made moral judgments on who gets published and not, and Neil Gaiman's been propped up higher than everybody else. That's another story. It's even worse, when you get to who the publishers are themselves. But for booksellers, you should go through the top bookseller list and probably stock those, because that's probably what people want. It makes sense. Okay. Now, you can make moral judgments, or you can act like that. That makes sense. But writing this middle line, like this group does right here, they're called Dreamhaven, is absolutely insane. So he says, "We had a huge section for Neil Gaiman over the years. It's been slowing down. We're just moving things around when the news came out. We're still selling some of his books and things. We leave it up to the people. If they keep buying books, we keep them on the shelves." Well, he says that about this, but in the same breath, he says that when it came to John Norman, the author of Gore, he removed his books from the shelves because of his, quote, misogynistic comments. Now, John Gorman was also removed from the World Science Fiction Convention in 2001 in Philadelphia. So I guess I'm in the same spot as him. Now, he wasn't done so because he was a racist bully. They called him a misogynist. And this is what he said in a reply. It's really interesting history that a lot of people don't know. He says, "How many of you were actually closely involved in the programming decisions at a recent World Science Fiction Convention? To those of you who objected to or were innocent of ideological activism, the following remarks are not addressed. In particular, they're not intended to express anything critical of my many friends in the Science Fiction Society. But it must be understood that the convention was not in their hands, but the hands of others that taints recent convention and no way apply to affect the Philadelphia Science Fiction Society. There seems to be little common ground other than accidents of geography between the esteemed group, or so significant history of our genre, and the corporation which the 59th World Science Fiction Convention entrusted." So they removed him from programming, and it was all because they don't like him. and they say that his books are misogynistic, right? And so they don't want to have him be able to talk about his books or have free speech. And that's what it comes down to. He says that it was not made clear why they were unable to accept my offer of participation. I thought they were in charge of programming. Without being sanguine to an editor's discourse, I think perhaps they might have said something like, we refuse to let you participate. And of course, they don't say, or because of political pressures from certain authors or fans, we feel it might jeopardize our position within the personality network to have an open convention. And this is what they do. They feel that pressure. When I got banned, I saw that like people from the SIFWA organization were conspiring in a secret group called Codex Writers to try to get me banned. They were writing to them to force them to come ban me. There is a whisper network within these groups that do this kind of thing. We covered yesterday on the channel that Clownfish TV just got banned from a convention just because they're Trump supporters. This sort of thing happens quite a bit. And as you go through this letter right here, which is very interesting, he actually talks about, the importance of free speech and allowing authors to actually just talk and not be worried about this sort of thing because it's ridiculous. Science fiction should not be limited to the over and over stuff. There should be room for the never before stuff. Someday, perhaps, Berlin Wall of science fiction will be brought down. I do not think it will come down in our near future. Oh, he was prophetic there. It got way, way worse in this level. Is driven on the left side of the road long enough. She has been a one-restaurant town with only item on the bill of political fare long enough. Why is science fiction, standard science fiction, a ghetto existence and small audiences? Guess. There's a population out there which might well be interested in hearing what science fiction has to say if it thought it had anything to say. Brilliant stuff here. And this is exactly what happened here. Science fiction deserves more to be a literary backwater despised by serious critics and held in contempt by the average intellectual. It deserves more to be a vehicle for endless potstatch of prizes. And this is what he's talking about exactly. This sort of thing where you're trying to silence different viewpoints, trying to silence different people, and then comparing it to somebody's sexual assault is absolutely crazy. That's what this bookstore did when they banned this guy and tried to pull him from the shelves on there when it was a very popular book. And of course, by not pulling Neil Gaiman, it just shows that Neil Gaiman, despite what he's doing, is just something that they want to promote because of his ideology. And that is what the publishing industry has become, and that is why it's failing so fast. It's absolutely crazy, and this is what I've been trying to warn for a long, long time. I mean, the good news is bookstores don't matter so much. I mean, I haven't been in bookstores at all. It's kind of a vanity thing anyway to be in a bookstore now, and I sell so much on Amazon that, we just have our own alternative networks. But if these people want to play politics, we have to do things differently here. And please start by supporting alternatives in science fiction and fantasy. Really appreciate you guys for being here. What do you think about this? I thought this was a very interesting story. Finding that information about the Gore guy being banned from Worldcon and then being banned from a bookstore. Wild stuff. Interesting history in science fiction. I guess this has been going on for 20 plus years. Hit the like and subscribe button, and please grab the Stars Entwined and the whole trilogy in the description below, guys. Really appreciate you for reading. We'll be back soon.